We are overnight on 3AW, and this time on this Tuesday morning means Nic Hayes. Good morning, Nic.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Mark.
Hello, Nick.
Nice to have you with us as always, Nic, and I see you're spreading your wings a little bit media-wise as far as radio goes.
Oh, look, you know what? When you start working with you two, it's amazing. You've raised my level. You've raised the bar for which I deliver, and then all of a sudden they all come calling. So yes, I'm going to be on TUE tonight or tomorrow morning. I can't even keep up with it now.
No, it's all too much. I know.
As well.
You'll need sort of a media secretary, won't you, to handle all the bookings?
Don't forget our commission.
Yes, no, the commission's coming through. I'll give you 75% of everything that I make with you guys. So there you go.
Fantastic.
As arranged. Thank you so much. Yes, I wish you all the best with it too. And speaking with the lovely Clive Robertson. Now, Nic, we must get underway. And Winkgate, as you call it.
Oh, look, have you noticed everything, if it's a disaster in the media or anything that's going on, it just gets a gate. That poor old hotel in the US, Watergate, just everything's got gate at the end of it. But Winkgate, oh my heavens.
It really has become ridiculous to me.
One of the greatest blow-ups you've ever seen. I mean, seriously, this is just us analysing and just really diving so deeply into every little mannerism, every little flick of the hair or anything that we can see that we can actually make a story out of. We're doing it. But you know what? Got to say, the Prime Minister, he is poorly advised. He has these brain fades when he's doing a radio interview, and you two know it better than anyone. You're sitting in there, it's a non-verbal communication. You can't yell out and scream out, turn that button on here or do that there, because this is radio. This is a broadcast, this is live, and he's getting a phone call coming through, talkback caller, very unpredictable, don't know what's going to happen, and it just so happens to be Gloria, who we find out is doing a little bit of phone sex on to pay a few bills down the way. She's had a go at the Prime Minister.
I think also was a staffer for Kevin Rudd at one stage.
Oh, look, this is where it all gets a little ridiculous, is that we dive deeper into the person that has made the call and not looking at the issues. Yes, she is. She's an activist. She's a socialist. The type of talkback callers that tend to try and get on the programs when the Prime Minister or even when the opposition's in place, they do try to get in there and put the Prime Minister or the opposition leader into a very uncomfortable state.
Yes, our Neil Mitchell here at 3AW says he has got a sixth sense to smell these kind of callers during election campaigns.
They do such a great job, trying to, even it out a little bit. I listen to a lot of the talkback on your program, and I think, great entertainment, a lot of people, you've got really good personable relationships. There's nothing ever nasty or really untoward. But on these kind of programs, they do try to dive and dig in. And look, this is, whether you like it or not, the question, we're going away from the real issues here. We've all of a sudden talked about this little wink that has been said, and the wink was just purely to say, look, I'll take this call. I've got it, no problems.
Yeah.
It was a silly thing.
And now he's been called a creep by Sarah Hanson-Young. I think really she flapped her face a little too soon there, don't you think, Nic?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we all wanted to read into these things too heavily. Let's go away and read into the budget a little bit more. Let's go see how this all plays out. But I think that, we talked about it last week, Andrew, the idea that this government is going to turn this around, and can it come back when it comes to the next election time. I was looking back at some of the past political performances, and the last time that this was done, and we did talk about John Howard. John Howard in 96 did a massive slash and burn on the federal budget then. But John Howard never lived in the days of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Where every single person running around has a mobile phone in their hand that's a virtual media station, outlet, that can take a photo, can take a moment and actually post it up on the internet. There was none of that in the days 20 years ago. And you'd have to start to question what was the strategy and what kind of strategy that Tony Abbott and the Liberal Party have had, putting this same and similar kind of approach that was done in 1996, doing it now in 2014.
Yes, everyone's a journalist these days, aren't they, or potentially?
The social journalist, that's what everyone's called. They've got the ability to send tweets, they've got the ability to send emails, they've got the ability to take photos and post them up on the net. Everyone is looking and potentially could be that paparazzi taking that photo, that key piece of media that could go anywhere. John Howard never experienced that in '96, but in 2014, Tony Abbott's seeing the effects of the television camera looking at him straight down the lens while he's doing a radio interview. I'd have to say that was the biggest brain fade you could have. Didn't look good from an Australian Prime Minister, and he's paying the consequences.
Apparently so, yes. Hopefully it blows over. To me, and I'm not taking sides here, but whether it was Kevin Rudd doing it or Julia Gillard or any Prime Minister sitting there, let it be. It's past. It was a moment. And it just is a bit unusual to have a talkback caller come in and identify themselves as a senior citizen phone sex worker. As I'm saying it, I've got a laugh in my voice.
How would you have coped with that? Someone ringing in on that front. And I mean,
I know Mark and I would have had a bit of a look with each other and had a bit of a giggle about it. That's the truth of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think most would. But, we don't expect to hear that, especially when it's breakfast radio, morning radio, and an ABC radio station more so. They're a little bit more conservative over there.
True, so true. Do you think the government can get the train back on tracks, though? That's the question. Now, you've been around a while in media and follow these things.
Look, I think they can, but they've got to change their strategy, and they can't think of the way that John Howard did it back in 1996. It's as simple as that. They're facing way too many scrutinies. There's too much media out there that is now looking to try and keep this pressure that's on Tony Abbott. I have a real fear that Tony Abbott's days not are numbered, but they're on call. They're basically saying, look, if you can't turn this around, because the minute this sort of snowball starts, it's very difficult to stop it. I'm not saying that about the Liberal Party. I think the Liberal Party as a whole will work through this, but particularly on a leader, if the leader's not performing, they will start to lose faith, and we could start seeing what we saw with the Australian Labor Party.
Oh, no.
Well, it's just a heads-up warning on this, because the Liberal Party will get nervous about this, and they haven't exactly thrown a huge amount of support behind this federal budget, other than Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott that have been leading the way with this.
Yeah. Now, recent protests over the federal budget, they've somewhat proven to be a waste of time, you remark, and somewhat counterproductive. I think some of the images we've seen in our 6 o'clock newses have not really helped the cause.
No, well, look, protests back in the days, in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, they were fantastic for TV, great visuals. You'd have numbers, mass numbers, 5, 6, 10,000 people marching on, and normally a lot of them were peaceful. Some got out of hand, of course, and if you looked over it in the UK in the Thatcher days, they were really bad. But you see a protest as a way to highlight a problem, highlight an issue, and that would normally be addressed. Today's protests, I don't know. I think they're just wasting their time. They seem to be very small. They seem to be very guerrilla-like. They go into the Vice-Chancellor's office. They go to a parliamentarian's office. There's only 40 or 50. They all look like they've been hired by some renter crowd, and none of them really look like students. There might be a couple of token students at the front, but the rest look like they're some sort of activist groups. I just think the day of the protest may have disappeared. It'd be interesting to hear from your listeners on this.
Yes, I would like to get some comment at the end of your bit here.
I just feel that the protest was always great for TV, and because our media has changed a little bit, and we are looking probably more on social and new media as being a means and method to gain, for instance, signatures. We once used to go around with a clipboard and take down signatures if you were up against a brick wall going up in your council or something like that. You can now collect signatures online and collect 5, 10, 20,000 of them. If you've got a like-minded, you can start a Facebook page and get people to support it through that. We're a lot more digital. We can do it from our house, from our home, and we're a lot more organised in that means. So I just think the days of the protest, unless they've got really big numbers, they really hurt themselves, because people start saying, well, why are you pushing around a politician like that? Why are you hurting people? And also, to get back to work. That used to be the old statement they used to say back in the 60s.
That's right. Get a job. That's right. I've heard that said in my house in the years gone by. All right, now to the Australian of the Year and Adam Goodes. Nick?
Adam Goodes, look, it's Indigenous Week. It's Indigenous round for the AFL. And Adam Goodes, when it was the Essendon versus Sydney game, Adam Goodes wasn't even aware that he was racially vilified on the football oval. It happened in the crowd. Essendon supporter got up, gave some words that you probably don't want to repeat. I think the words were in the lines of gorilla, etc.
Oh, all that, yes.
And just words that we know are racist. And what was really pleasing to see was that the crowd, the Essendon supporters, said, "No, who said that? We're not up for that." They've made a complaint. In fact, the person was evicted from the stadium, and also too, their membership was revoked, was suspended until they go through a program there to address their racism issues. But what a wonderful thing to happen now that it is done, that the crowd can actually say, well, hang on, we won't put up with that. Now, Adam Goodes heard about that, said thank you very much. The club apologised and said, well, I wasn't even aware. But, you know, that's the kind of movement and awareness that this Australian of the Year has actually gone away and done. He's made us really feel that it's okay to stand up and say, no, we won't put up with that. And I think that was really something pleasing to see in the media, and especially now it's Indigenous Week this week for the AFL. We're going to see our Indigenous players stand up and see them at their best.
He's something of a controversial Australian of the Year, Adam Goodes, despite what you've just said, Nick, and I just wonder how people feel about him, and wouldn't mind taking some calls on people's feelings about Adam as in that role, that ambassadorial role.
People don't like him because, one, he's an AFL footballer. Two, they didn't like the way he treated that young 13-year-old Collingwood supporter last year and put that real blame on her, and the focus became right on her. They didn't like that. But I suppose, you know, he was the one that stood by her. He was the one that supported her and said, look, I want to help, etc. He didn't, when he did those actions, he wasn't, he followed through with it. He didn't actually just leave it at that. Look, Adam Goodes is going to be a controversial choice. He's not solving cancer. He's not going out and, finding new ways to beat some of the diseases and lifestyles and social issues that are going on other than racism. And racism, I think, is one thing that we do have to tackle in this country. And even one top media star from Sydney, was even suggesting that even this kind of behaviour that's coming from Adam Goodes is reverse apartheid. Well, I don't know. I reckon that guy, and I won't name him and I won't give him any more airtime or any more oxygen from my lungs. I think that guy should probably just go back and read the book again and see what really happened in South Africa, because it was an absolute disgraceful thing to say. And quite frankly, I think hopefully some of those listeners over there in Sydney might decide to turn off.
Have we come very far in multiculturalism in Australia? You monitor these things in your job?
Look, I think we have, but I think that we've got a long, long way to go. I think we're too easy to go away and particularly in the media when this incident happened with Essendon, a lot of the letters and a lot of the commentary that came online was suggesting, well, what's happened to football? Why can't we go to football and say what we want to go away and say? You can say what you want to go away and say, but just don't make it racially abusive. Don't depress or try and put down a person because of their skin colour or their religion. That's just not on. And I think we are trying to head that way. I just don't think we've necessarily come far enough, but we're working on it.
Nic, as always, thank you very much. And 96900 693, 96900 693 is the number. Your comments on what Nic has been talking about as Australian of the Year, Adam Goodes. Has he been a good role model? Has he been perhaps a little bit too much the other way? And also, protests in the 21st century, the student protests in particular. Love your thoughts on that. Are they effective, or are they, as Nic suggested, not as effective as once they were? Nic, as I say, thank you very much for your time. We'll speak again next week.
Good on you, boys. Talk next week.
Nic Hayes.
Jennifer Keitel.